we would like to present about assessing speaking. We have 4 group members. First, my name is Vika Nur Vadilah, and then Firdaus, Firmansyah, Fitri Larasati, and candra oktarian. We have 4 guidelines. First, basic types, micro and macro skills, designing imitative speaking. Next, designing intensive speaking and responsive speaking. Then, test spoken English and designing interactive speaking. And the last, oral proficiency interview and designing extensive speaking. First, I would like to explain about assessing speaking. Speaking is a productive skill that can directly. Speaking is the product of lexicon structure and scores. In receptive performance, the only those responses. In productive performance, the oral or written stimulus must be specific enough to elicit output within an expected range of performance as the scoring or rating procedures appropriately. Jadi, speaking di sini sebagai salah satu secara pembelajaran bahasa Inggris secara langsung, di mana tetap melibatkan lexicon, structure, and grammatical. Second, I would like to explain about basic types, micro and macro skills, designing imitative speaking. First, imitative. Imitative, this is purely phonetic level of oral production. A number of prosody, lexical, and grammatical properties of language included the criterion performance. The only rule of listening here is in the short-term strands of a prompt such just long enough to allow the speaker to retain the short stretch of language that must be imitated. Jadi intinya di sini imitatif adalah model pengulangan. Next, there are intensive. A second type of speaking frequently employed in assessment context is the production of short stretches of oral language designed to demonstrate competence in a narrow band of grammatical, phrasal, lexical, or phonological relationship. The example reading aloud, response text, sentence, and dialogue formation. Jadi intensif di sini adalah yang berhubungan, bentuk speaking yang berhubungan dengan assessment, di mana tetap mempertimbangkan grammar, lexical, dan frasa yang benar, seperti reading aloud, response text, dan lain-lain. The third, responsive. Responsive assessment tasks include interaction and task comprehension, but at a somewhat limited level of very short conversations, standard greetings and small talks, simple requests and comments, and the like. The fourth, interactive. The difference between responsive and interactive speaking is the length and complexity of the interaction, which sometimes includes multiple channels and or multiple participants. Jadi interaktif dan responsif itu sebenarnya sama, hanya bedanya interaktif lebih komplit dan lebih lengkap. 5. Extensive. It is oral production. Task includes speeches, oral presentation, and storytelling, during which the opportunity for oral interaction for listener is either highly limited or lured altogether. Jadi extensive biasanya digunakan pada speech, oral presentation, dan storytelling. Then I would like to explain micro and macro skills of speaking. First, micro skill. Producing the smaller chunks of language such as phonemes, morphemes, words, collocations, and phrasal units. Kemudian yang macro skill imply the speaker's focus on the larger elements, fluency, discourse, function, style, cohesion, nonverbal communication, and strategic option. Next, I would like to explain about the important issues as you set out to design tasks. First, no speaking. Capable of isolating the single skill of oral production. Curriculum involvement of the additional performance of oral comprehension and possible reading is usually necessary. Eliciting. Specific criterion you have designated for a task can be tricky because beyond of word level. spoken language offers a number of productive options to test takers. Next, because of the above two characteristics of oral production assessment, it is important to carefully specify scoring procedures for a response so that ultimately you achieve as a high reliable index possible. And then I would like to explain designing assessment tasks first. Imitating speaking. Imitating speaking is repeating of words, phrases, and sentences with province of the long sayings discarded audiolingual method, and in an area of communicative language teaching, believe that meaningful imitation of sounds is fruitless. Jadi, seperti yang saya jelaskan sebelumnya, imitative speaking adalah repeating dari word, phrases. Contohnya seperti test takers here, beat, pause, and then beat. Jadi bedanya adalah speakingnya sama, cuma tulisannya itu beda dan cara penekanannya juga beda.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Firdaus and I'm the second speaker of the fifth group. And here I'm going to talk about designing intensive speaking for speaking assessment tasks. So as you can see at your PowerPoint, that at the intensive level, test takers are asked to produce short stretches of words, not more than one sentence, which will they demonstrate their linguistic ability of specified level of language. And there are more than one assessment, more than one task that could be used in this assessment task. The first one is a directed response task. In this type of task, the test administrator shows a particular grammatical form or a transformation of a sentence. Example for this task is one is tell me he went home. After the test taker process this word, they will probably tell the test giver how the person they talk about went home. And the second one is read aloud task. Intensive reading aloud tasks include reading beyond the sentence level up to a paragraph or two. So the technique for the read aloud task is easily administered by selecting a passage and record the test taker output. And the next one is the third one is sentence or dialogue completion task. Another techniques for targeting intensive aspects of language requires test takers to read dialogues in which one speaker's line have been erased. For example, here, if you can see on the PowerPoint that there are two persons. The test giver became a salesperson, and the test taker he have to be a customer. And the fourth one is a picture cue task. One of the most popular ways to obtain oral language performance at both intensive and extensive levels is a picture cued stimulus that requires a description from the test takers. As you can see on the PowerPoint the example, that there are two girls there, so there they have to use a comparative form to compare the object above. So the picture task can use a comparative form, so the test taker have to compare between those two girls. So here the test taker will probably say that the left girl is taller than the right girl. So that is the picture cue task. And now we will move on to designing assessment tasks for responsive speaking. So for the task for responsive speaking, the first one is question and answer. Question and answer task can consist of one or two questions from an interviewer, or they can make a whole portion of question in oral interview. The question and answer. The question could be vary from the simple one, like what it is called in English for the meaning, or to the complex one, like what do you think government should do in order to save its people in the COVID-19 pandemic. That one is the complex one. So um, the example for the question and answer you can see on the presentation PowerPoint. The example is, what do you think about the weather today? Or the second one is, what do you like about the English language? The next one is giving instruction and direction. So for giving instruction and direction, already become our daily routine, that whether we are want to make something or want to use some tools, we read the instruction, the manual instruction. The example of this task is describe how to make a typical dish from your country. And the second one is, how do you access email on a PC computer? From this question, the test taker, they have to give some instruction on how to make the dish from the country, and how to send an email to a PC computer. So they have to give the step one by one to be able to pass this responsive task. And the last one for the responsive task is paraphrasing. Another type of assessment task that can be categorized as responsive is paraphrasing, and that let the test takers to read or hear a limited number of sentences, around 2 or 5 lines, 5 sentences, sorry, and then ask them to paraphrase the sentence. So after the test giver give the sentences to the test taker, they should give the test taker something. The test taker should memorize the word or the sentences, and they need to paraphrase the sentence into the words that they into the different words they understand than the authentic, the real words. So I think that's all from my presentation today, and there will be my another partner who will tell you more about this about the test spoken English and designing interactive speaking. Thank you for your nice attention, and stay safe.
Hello everyone, my name is Fitri Larasati, number student 229. I would like to explain about TSA, or Test Spoken English and Designing Interactive Speaking. What is TSA? TSA is an internationally administered instrument for assessing non-native speakers' proficiency in speaking English. The tasks on the TSA are designed to elicit oral productions in various discourse categories rather than in selected phonological, grammatical, or lexical target. So basically, TSA is a test instrument to check your proficiency in speaking English. Here are the specifications of TSA content. The first one is original administrations, and the second one is Lazaraton and Wagner. That make the first one is more specific. So it's not a different, but the second one to make it, the first one is more specific. You can read the specifications by pause the video. Okay, move on from the TSA content. Now we have TSA rating scale. So the rating scale is divided into 5. The highest is 60 and the lowest is 20. You will get 60 if you can perform the test perfectly, and for the 50 you will you almost perfect but not really, and the 40 when you're not so bad but not so good, and the 30 is when you generally not effective and your performance is really poor, and the speech is very frequently marked by non-native characteristic. And the last one, when you get the lowest score, 20, it means your speaking is you have no effective communication at all, no evidence of ability to perform the text. So it means you are failed. That's all about the rating scale, and move to the next part, designing assessment tasks, interactive speaking. This part will explain about four interactive speaking. The first one is interview. Interview is a test administrator and a test taker sit down in direct face-to-face exchange and proceed through a protocol of questions and directives. There are 4 parts in interview. The first one is warm up or small talk. In Indonesia, you can call it basa-basi. And the second one is level check. The test administrator will test you with some questions, simply questions. And the third one is probe, material tested, when the administrator asks you to explain more about your goals and etc. And the fourth one is wind down, when the administrator asks you to sum up about the whole speaking test. So here are the success of oral interview di Panon. You can read by yourself. Pause the video. Okay, the next one is role play. Role play is a popular method to test your speaking ability. As an assessment device, role play opens some windows of opportunity for the test takers to use discourse that might otherwise be difficult to elicit. While role play can be controlled or guided by the interviewer, this technique takes the test taker beyond simple, intensive, and responsive levels to a level of creativity and complexity that approaches in the world pragmatics. But for the scoring part, the test administrator must be determine the assessment objectives of the role play, that devise a scoring technique that appropriately pinpoints those objectives. Let's move to the next part, discussions and conversations. Discussion and conversation can be formal or informal assessment. As a formal assessment, these matters with among students are difficult to specify because, this is a grouping and discussion and you have to check one by one, etc. But for informal techniques to assess learner, they offer a level of authenticity and spontaneity. So you can check your students or the test takers' authenticity and the spontaneity that other assessment techniques may not provide. And then for the assessing the performance of the participants through score or checklist should be carefully. Jadi you have to make it complex and designed to suit the objective of the observer discussions. Last but not least is games. Among informal assessments, as assessment, the key is to specify a set of criteria and reasonably practical and reliable scoring method. And some games that you can use is Tinker Toy, crossword puzzles, and city maps. That's all from me.
Okay, in this part, I would like to explain about oral proficiency interview. Oral proficiency interview, or OP, is an interview to assess how well oral production skill of speakers in 37 different languages. So this test not only assess for English language, not only assess English. In the oral proficiency interview is designed to assess pronunciation, fluency, and integrative ability, sociolinguistic and cultural knowledge, grammar, and vocabulary. If you take this test, you will get 4 possible level. You can be superior, advanced, intermediate, or novice. You can see the details of the description of each level in your books at page 177. Now let's move to the next part. I would like to explain about designing assessment for designing assessment extensive speaking. Extensive speaking tasks involve complex and relatively lengthy stretch of discourse. It is frequently variation on monologues and usually with minimal verbal interaction. For the example, extensive speaking tasks are speech, oral presentation, and storytelling. The first example is oral presentation. I think all of us is already familiar with oral presentation. In this type of task, usually use checklist or grid for scoring or evaluation the test takers. Holistic scores are tempting to use for their apparent practicality, but they may obscure the variability of performance across several subcategories, especially components of content and delivery. This kind of assessment is practical and the authenticity can be supported because all of the items on the list contribute to an effective presentation. Now, the second example for extensive assessment is picture cue storytelling. Visual pictures, photographs, diagrams, and charts are often used for improved oral production skill. At extensive level assessment, this can be used. Consider a picture as a stimulus for longer story or description. So it is different with the intensive level. In the extensive level, the picture as a stimulus for longer story or description. Next is retelling a story or news event. Retelling a story or news event. In this type of task, test taker will hear or read a story or news event, and they need to retell it. The objective of this assessment is for listening comprehension of the original to production of a number of oral discourse features, fluency, and interaction with the hearer. Now, the last example is translation of extended prose. Translation in the category of extensive speaking is different with intensive tasks. Here, for assigning, use longer text, and the text taker must read it in the native language and then translate into English. Those texts could come in many forms like dialogue, synopsis of movie or novel, and then direction how to find something in a map, and etc. I think that's all from our group. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.